Hi everybody, welcome to today's NBS webinar, How to Create Robust Specifications. The webinar will last between 50 minutes and 60 minutes. All attendees' microphones are muted, but we do encourage, please ask as many questions as possible and we'll answer them all. In terms of our speakers today, my name is Stephen Hamil, I'm Innovation Director at NBS, and I'm also joined by Craig Brown, Director at SpecStudio, and my colleague Chris Vickers, a Senior Technical Solutions Consultant at NBS. When developing the sample specifications that will be available to download after this webinar, we wanted the specifications to have some context. So not just here's a door specification, here's a window specification. So we developed the project specifications as if we were building this building that you can see on the screen. So this is a fictional building. The design of it is actually originally done by the architectural practice HOK, and the project was for a project in the Middle East, which for one reason or another never fully happened. So it was back 6 or 7 years ago. I talked to some contacts I had at HOK, and they said that we'll redo the model, and we work with them because it helps tell the NBS story, having a building that people can imagine in their mind. It's not the most complex building in the world. It's not the tallest building. It's sort of a single-story restaurant, but it does look quite nice. So on the screen here, you can see that sort of 3D model that was developed. And you can imagine if you were writing a set of specifications for this, you'd look at it and think, okay, we've got cladding, we've got decking, railing, a bit of brise-soleil. We've got different types of roof systems. And if we just have a little look inside there, we can see there's sort of a number of different ceiling systems going down into things like sanitary ware, door sets, windows, different floor coverings, etc. So working with SpecStudio, we said, look, we'd like to develop some really nice specifications. That the first thing we had to do was sort of define which specifications we want to produce. So we broke it down into about 20-25 packages of different systems. You see them on the screen there, and they correspond to the building that we've just talked about. So hopefully that sets the scene. What we're going to do now is have a section where we talk to Craig Brown, Director of SpecStudio, and find out the process in terms of how we develop those specifications. Okay, so hi Craig. Before we talk about the specifications themselves, I was just wondering, could you say a little bit about yourself and SpecStudio, please?
Yeah, sure. So SpecStudio, we set up back in January 2021 during the third UK lockdown. And the main reason for us setting up was to kind of move away from the traditional kind of analog service being offered, using silo software that didn't really promote collaboration. We could see obviously collaboration was a big kind of instigator. A lot of clients were wanting to collaborate as much as possible, and the old way of doing specifications previously just didn't promote itself to that. So we are a truly cloud-based business. All of our systems and tools have been chosen to enable real-time collaboration anytime, anywhere. And this includes obviously NBS Chorus, which is our main specification platform. Since 2021, we've grown quite rapidly. We're now the largest independent specification consultancy in the UK with a team of 10. It'll be 11 next week when we have a graduate join us, and then we have another person join us on the 2nd, 3rd of Jan. Will make us a team of 12. We work across a number of different clients, different sectors, across regions such as the UK, Ireland, and the Middle East. What we do. So mainly the ethos of our service is to provide a fully flexible service to reflect our clients' requirements. We support architects, designers, contractors, manufacturers with their specifications. Clients can outsource project specifications to either us as a full service or a partial service in a traditional way, as we've done kind of previously, which is more like the analog kind of service. Or alternatively, we've been asked to help practices with their in-house project specifications or specification reviews, where they've decided to take specifications in-house using NBS Chorus, for example. This is our website. It's a little bit about us. bit about obviously using NBS Chorus. We're a strategic partner of NBS, which been fantastic working with the guys. Different clients we work with, to give you an indicator. Let's go down here. So that gives you a kind of brief indicator of the types of clients we're working with. Small projects right up to a multi-million pound projects, which has been fantastic. A little bit about individual services we offer. So we do traditional specification writing, we do specification reviews, this is on in-house specifications. We help clients set up in-house masters using NBS Chorus. We do in-house training as well. So this is where clients want to take control of their specifications. And so we go in, set up their kind of specification principles, set up their masters, set up their do's and don'ts, do practice management as well. So this is kind of from a high level point of view, helping them with their contract appointments and fee proposal, design responsibility matrix, and so on. Manufacturer's specifications, again, tailoring the manufacturer's specifications to suit certain procurement routes. We've had feedback from architects where they're getting manufacturer specifications where they're getting 50, 60 pages, which isn't really suitable. So we've been working with manufacturers to kind of tailor the specifications they provide to the procurement route and the design stage they're working at. And sustainable specifications, which obviously is a big thing in the industry at this moment in time. So that's just a brief kind of overview. If you want more information, please feel free to have a look on our website. And then a little bit about the team. So I set up the business with Matt Fox, who's co-founder. A little bit about myself. So I've been doing specifications now for, oh God, since 2008, of a number of different regions, whether it's Australia, Middle East, South Africa, Singapore. So I've got quite a lot of experience in doing specifications. Yeah, I think that's about it really.
Nice one. And I guess in terms of the project that we undertook to do the sample specifications, we tried to keep it as close to a sort of real life project as possible. So we had a couple of our technical authors that were the architects, as if they'd done the design, myself involved as well. And I guess the first question is, if you don't mind just popping Chorus on the screen, how did we go from these are the specifications we wanted to sort of planning out the specification writing and the scope of what we're going to do?
Yeah, well, so it's all to do with the information obviously provided. So when we first started, obviously, as you mentioned in your introduction, the specifications were put into individual packages. These were assigned with the individual package number. So the manufacturers provided their preferred product they would like to obviously put forward for inclusion within the specifications. We looked at the products, obviously reviewed it, reviewed the information with the NBS source, and then we assigned the design responsibility, which is obviously the crucial part. So as you can see on the screen here, so these are the individual packages, as Stephen mentioned earlier on. So these are all listed at present. We have this prefix here, which is to do with the package number. You can see all the way down towards the bottom, we've got actually 27 packages in the end.
The scope always creeps, doesn't it, Craig?
Yeah, always. And then to clarify each individual system, we added a system code. The system code is important because that becomes the conduit between obviously the specification and the design drawings. So there's a link between the two, and obviously the Revit model. So when we received that information, we reviewed it. We worked with the manufacturers again, because some of the manufacturers' information they provide can be quite vast. So it's a case of kind of tailoring it down, reviewing the information, depending on whether it's descriptive or whether it is prescriptive. Prescriptive is where it's complete instructive information used to manufacture and construct the system produced by the design team. So that's generally kind of proprietary systems. Descriptive is where the design team describes the design intent only, and it then allows the specialist subcontractor to complete the detailed design of the system. These are more kind of performance-based specifications. So it's very, very crucial to understand the design responsibility before you even start the specifications, because not everything will be prescriptive, not everything will be descriptive. And again, that needs to align with the client's PI, again, with their in-house knowledge, in-house expertise, and depending on what they're comfortable taking on the design responsibility for.
Yeah, I think we talked about that quite a lot, didn't we? We sort of followed the methodology that had been explained in the RIBA plan of work overview guidance, and we made it very clear. I think I can see it there on the screen and the titles, where D made it clear that there was a descriptive specification where P was prescriptive. So could you maybe open one of the descriptive specifications that hasn't got mention of a manufacturer and show how we'd specify by performance?
Sure. A good one we've got in here is board ceiling. So search at the top, and this comes up with the board ceiling here. So within here, this is a full descriptive specification. So within here, we always start off, we always have the design responsibility towards the top, so it's clear. Everybody who's reading it knows straight away the design responsibility. Within here, it's purely based mainly on performance, which is what descriptive is. So we have all these performance clauses here. There's no proprietary products indicated in this specification. This is because there wasn't a particular architectural requirement. There was no particular finish required for this individual system. So it's based purely on a particular set of performance. So we have different performance clauses here. As I go down to here, you can see we've got design submittals, and then we've got a number of different standards, structural performance, durability. So basically the contractor needs to provide submittals to achieve the performance requirements as specified by the individual client. Now,
it's one thing saying this is the performance I want, but then making sure you get that in reality. What did you write into the specification using the NBS template clauses to make sure that the design was of the quality you wanted, the products, and the execution was of the quality you wanted?
No, it's a very, very good point. But this is where we bring into the design submittals. So submittals are absolutely crucial, especially when it comes to descriptive specifications, because as I say, it's generally kind of performance. There's other aspects where there'll be certain visual requirements, which we'll talk about, obviously coming on to it next. But with the design submittals, this is specifying that the contractor needs to complete the detailed design in accordance with the standard. They need to provide submittals to verify the aesthetic evaluation, and also to demonstrate the compliance with the performance requirements as specified below, i.e. these clauses here. It's asking the contractor to submit certain elements, again, for the client's acceptance, certain timing of when this needs to happen before manufacturer. So again, that can be signed off before manufacture. So that's one aspect. And then we've got also product samples, which is here. So again, once that submittal is finally done, we're asking the contractor to submit the product samples of the final signed off submittals. So again, this is for sign off, again, for aesthetic and performance requirements. And also this prelim installation as well. So again, another sign off to make sure obviously the client's happy. So this is when the samples have been accepted. Well, submittals have been accepted first, samples have been accepted, and then this is where it's on site. So there's a sample or a certain area where the system will be installed first. So as a kind of what I'm trying to say, for basically for sign off. So the client could come on site, check everything's okay, make sure it achieves the aesthetic requirements, make sure it achieves the performance requirements, can sign off that certain sample panel, and then obviously the rest of the installation can carry on.
I guess the big take home there is don't just specify the performance you want on that, like on one side of the V curve, but on the other side, specify how you're going to check that.
Correct. Yeah.
And then if we look at like the complete opposite way of specification, where you do the full design yourself and you pick each individual product, could you show an example of one of those specifications?
Yeah, sure. So let's look at like a modular board ceiling, for instance. So within here, again, we have the design responsibility towards the top. So we specify it is prescriptive. So again, it's complete instructive information used for the manufacturing construct the system produced by the design team. So again, this is proprietary systems. So you can see here, it's a Saint-Gobain system. Comes up here, nicely on the right-hand side. So when the manufacturer provided these systems, all these systems with NBS source, so obviously we can use the nice little feature here. So it adds it straight into the specification. And then we can obviously amend this to suit as required, to suit individual requirements. It might be different sizes, there might be different finishes, for instance, but it's a nice little feature that all seems to integrate pretty well together.
And I guess you can see on the screen there, also specifying the execution clauses as well. So you're not just getting the quality product, you make sure it's installed correctly and there's any spares and it's cleaned off properly at the end on system completion. Yeah,
it is. Also, if you're looking here, there's obviously no system performance. So the reason why we don't put in system performance in prescriptive is that it might conflict actually what the system is actually specified. The performance is inherent within the system already specified, so we don't need an extra system performance like we had in descriptive. So that's the two differences between the two types of specifications. So come down here to obviously execution. We've still got samples in here, so we still want to see the final sample. We still want to sign that off, and then you've got all your execution clauses down here.
And just whilst you are there as well, I think what's nice on the screen at the moment is the links between the clauses as well, which is a feature of the unit class content where you go from a system to a product to execution. You can also have shared parent systems sort of thing. Yeah,
that works very, really well. So if you see where we've got here, so we've got two modular board systems. So the different types. So the first one is a hygiene system. Second one is a focus. So both again from the same manufacturer, but because they're going to be similar installation clauses, instead of repeating these clauses in every single, so if we have 10 different modular ceiling types, there's no point repeating that same clause. They're going to be installed roughly the same. So we can just link these clauses together. So saves time, makes it more and more efficient for writing the specifications. And again, if one of these needs to change for whatever reason, it's updated in every single individual section where the clause is linked. So it's a really, really good feature.
And I guess what we've talked about there are the two really clean examples where it's like pure prescriptive or pure descriptive. But when we were developing the specs, you were also mentioning that in the real world, you quite often want a particular product for maybe aesthetic purposes, but you want to push it into a specialist subcontractor design package. Can you talk a bit about how you've done that one?
Yeah, so I think we did it so remember on the model, it had that kind of architectural, nice kind of bespoke roof. So it's obviously a very, very nice architectural feature. So what we did here, so again, this kind of happens where architects, designers, they don't maybe have the PI, they don't have the specialist knowledge or in-house expertise to fully detail design a certain element, but they know they want to base their system on a proprietary system, for instance. So we kind of introduced this kind of descriptive plus where we're nominating a certain manufacturer. So it's kind of where the architect's done his due diligence to a certain level. They know they want the visual requirements, they know what performance requirements they require, but they don't want to take full design responsibility for it. They need the specialist help either from the contractor or from the specialist subcontractor post-contract. So we introduced this kind of D+, which again is very, very similar to descriptive, but it's where the design intent only, but it selects a preferred manufacturer that allows the subcontractor to complete the detailed design of the system. So again, has all the performance in here, but we are stating a manufacturer. And if we go down to the individual kind of roof type, so we're stating a certain system, but this is from a design intent purpose only, from a visual point of view. It still needs to, so they technically could go to someone else, as long as they achieve the visual requirements and the performance requirements, then that's the most important parameters set here.
Yeah. And on previous webinars we've talked about the importance of coordinating the specification with like the drawings, the model, but there's a real importance here in terms of coordinating the specification with the prelims and the building contract, because the building contract has got to allow contractor design portion and then you've got to define that and make sure that that entire information set's fully thought through and fully coordinated.
Yeah, so again, within all our specifications, we always have this kind of opening clause. So it's important. I mean, we see it in industry, we see it with a number of different clients when we first start working with them, is that they do produce specifications in isolation or produce sections in isolation and just send out a certain unit class section, or going back to coin arrangements, that way, send out a certain F10. But it's important that it's read with the prelims or the A section, and read with the other project documentation and the design drawings, all relevant to that. So they all need to be sent out as one. One of the most important sections, which we see quite often that's not produced, is the actual prelims. So we've added this heading clause in here to make sure whoever's reading the specification is aware that they need to read this section in conjunction with the drawings, other sections of the specification, and also the prelims. A nice little feature we've got here is that we've used a project extranet. So within here, we've got a link to all the actual design drawings. So it's all coordinated. Also, we've got a link to other sections of the specification. So these are all printed out. So again, anybody using this can easily access each individual specification. And also, importantly, to the actual prelims itself. So at least it ties it all together, which I think is a real nice little feature.
Yeah, and this is just a sample project, so we've just used Google Drive there, but I think in real life it would be like a proper an A-side viewpoint, BIM 360 docs or what have you. And what's interesting, I remember we had the conversation about the prelims, and if you were the main contractor, you'd want to see all of the prelims and the contract clauses, but especially a subcontractor might just want to see a subset of the prelims. And I think the way we talked about that was on the extranet there, you'd control the permissions in terms of the main contractor's team can see the full prelims, whereas the specialist subcontractor could see what you've got open at the moment, which would be a few sections from the prelims.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, very interesting. And I've got to say, it was really enjoyable exercise seeing how our software and our content can be used to create sort of specifications in the process that you followed. So thank you very much for that, Craig. I think that concludes the first part of the webinar, and I'm sure quite a few questions will have came in. So I'm looking forward to seeing those at the end of the webinar, and either myself or Craig will get back to you on the questions. But thank you very much, Craig.
No problem.
So the next part of the presentation is going to show how the model and the specification were coordinated using the NBS plugin, and then how drawings and schedules were published from that. So for this part, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Chris Vickers, who's a senior technical solutions consultant at NBS. Before joining NBS, Chris spent a number of years with Faulkner Browns, a big architectural practice in the northeast of England. Now we're in the office today, so we normally just flash the screens up from our sort of home offices. So what I'm going to do is just swap seats with Chris, so Chris can sort of sit where I am, and I'm going to go sort of around the other side of the table out of sight. So a bit of magic now, editing. So hi, I'm behind the camera now, and we've got Chris on camera. So hi Chris.
Hi,
so I can see the model on the screen. So things like doors, roofs, ceilings, wash basins are drawn in the model, and are sort of written in the specification. So how do you link the two?
Link the two together. Yeah, so quite easy process. I was going to open the Chorus panel on the left hand side here. So this is via the NBS Revit plugin, and you can see I've got the specification for the Lakeside restaurant open there. I just need to click into the specification, like so. So what I'm going to do now is, the way you associate it works on a principle of sort of Revit type. You associate a clause back to, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a 3D annotated view on my screen there. So this is an accessible WC, and you can see there's some annotation on there already, and that's pulling through classification, but it's also pulling through the suffix clauses in the spec as well. But you can see here on the left hand side, we actually have one that isn't associated back to the specification. So it's a simple case of clicking on the modeled element and then going back to your specification and then searching for that particular clause in the spec. And because we've used the suffix, it becomes really easy then to sort of search for what you're looking for. So because it's sanitary ware, if I do sanitary 1, that brings up the systems like so. And if I change that to a 3, that then brings up the product clauses in there as well. But I actually want 302, which is the support grab rails. Now on the left-hand side of the clause title, you can see there's a little icon there to say it's already been associated to an open model. You can associate multiple objects or model elements to a specification clause. And because we've got the sort of drop-down hinged grab rail, we've got horizontal and vertical grab rails, these all sit under one clause. So all you need to do is just hit the little 3 icons on the right-hand side there, and then associate that to the model. It'll give me a little prompt, say, is that what I want to do? And I confirm that. And you can see on the screen there straight away, it's then displayed the classification, code and title, and also the suffix on there. So really, really easy to do. You don't need to do it every instance. As I say, it works on sort of Revit type level. So once you've done it once, any other object in the model will also be associated back to the specification.
That's really nice, really nice. It's worth saying that at the moment you're demonstrating this in Autodesk Revit, but I think you also have plugins for Vectorworks, AutoCAD.
That's correct, yeah.
I believe there's even a Bentley one on this way as well. And the principles are very similar in all of the different modeling tools. But in terms of Revit, what's actually happened to that object? Is what values have gone into it?
So what it will do is if I just click on that object again, and I'll go into its properties. In here, you'll see under General that we've now got Uniclass 2015 code, title, but then we've also got chorus prefix, suffix, and then we've got 3 read-only properties in there, and that's the clause ID, the specification ID, and the project ID. So the Revit plugin has actually pushed in these unique GUIDs. Gives it the associations or gives it the linkage. If these properties aren't in the object, it'll automatically push them in. If they are in there already, it'll just override any values in there. So that's the principle behind how it makes that association.
Yeah, so the GUIDs sort of do a sort of computer language hard link up, whereas the sort of more visual ones are things that, as you've shown, you can use in annotations and schedules.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. And now those GUIDs are there, can you actually click on the objects and see the corresponding specs?
Yeah, so if I jump back to the chorus panel, and for this one, let's go to a different view. So we'll go to our plan view, and we'll open that chorus panel on the left-hand side. So obviously we've already associated a lot of these model elements in here already. So as soon as I click on some of these elements, you can see there for the wash basin, it's jumped to the Orion Bock spec. Again, if we do the urinal, you can see it's jumped to the wall urinal. And if we do, let's do one more, we do a door set. You can see there, it automatically filters to that product clause. So it's really great for anybody who's modeling, if they don't know what's actually been specified. So if you made a linkage at an early stage in the project, and then the specification is being developed, it means you can just automatically see what's being populated in there, and then you can make any amendments in your model as you sort of see fit there. So yeah, again, really easy to navigate through.
And in your experience when you worked Fulton Brown's, let's say it was a £10 million leisure centre project.
Yeah.
What sort of size team is there, and how does that split between spec writing and design?
Yeah, I mean, the caveat was sort of 10 years ago since I was in practice, but at the time, for a typical project, you would have a project director, you would have a project architect, and then you would have a team of sort of technologists there as well. So that typically it would be the technical director or project director who did the specification, but it was generally then the technologists who did the sort of 3D modeling work. So there were two very siloed processes. So there were instances where you were doing some sort of 3D modeling, and then there wasn't a corresponding clause in the specification ready for you to make those associations or linkages. So because it was siloed, it wasn't a sort of seamless parallel sort of workflow, which is in today's sort of world of online collaboration, that's really what we're trying to achieve these days.
And in the webinar that we did 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think we announced the new designer licenses that are coming from NBS, and I think the thinking behind that is that you've got full NBS licenses for the spec writers, but for those that are working in the design tools and want to link up the spec, read the guidance, look at manufacturer content, there's that new offer, which is a bundle for a much reduced price.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a godsend and a time-saving element as well, undoubtedly.
Yeah, so if anybody's interested more in the sort of model integration side, please drop a note in the comments, because that's a feature, a new license feature we're releasing next month. Now we're looking at this sort of dream of all the information being integrated, Chris, but in reality, you generate PDFs, contractual drawings, etc. Can you show an example of some of the drawings that you
absolutely
generated from you?
So let's have a look at a nice spaces and locations plan drawing that we developed. This is very typical of a large project where you're sort of breaking down rooms into sort of activities, and what we've done there is we've assigned Uniclass spaces and locations codes against each room in the model there, and you can see it's all differentiated by color types. And then up on the sort of right hand side key there, we've sort of, for this example here, we've took the classification up to a higher level, and it means you don't have too many different colors on your plan. If you've got too many, if you go down to the sort of object level, you won't be able to differentiate between colors on your drawing there. So we took it to a higher level, and it works really nicely, that one. We've also generated a typical reflective ceiling plan. And then for this one, once Revit catches up, I'll zoom into this one. Again, very typical sort of room names, the height of the ceiling finish. But you can see that we've got different hatch patterns on these ceiling types, and what we've done on this one is we again generated a key there with the corresponding classification information, as well as again the suffix in the spec. So it's tying everything together. It's also cross-referenced really nicely. We've also got some really nice sanitary schedules, and what we've done on these ones, we sort of took the principles of the information that's contained within the objects is essentially what we can extract in terms of annotations at the very top there, but at the same time we can use the same information and use that within the schedule. So you see you've got classification on the left hand side there, you've got counts, product counts, and then the component types is actually that we've used the spec suffix in this instance here to tie them back. So that's a really nice example of how the two have coordinated different types of information, a graphical and a non-graphical piece of information, but using the same information in the model, which is being pushed in using the NBS plugin.
And I mentioned briefly at the start, but just I can mention it again now. And I see the HOK logo there. This original model and the original drawings were generated 6 to 7 years ago by a team at HOK, and it was I still follow him on LinkedIn and Twitter. I think it was David Light, who now works in Autodesk for a number of years, and Cara Di Piero, who I think occasionally sends a tweet out or two. So a little bit of a sort of thank you to the team at HOK that did this original model 6 to 7 years ago that Chris has sort of brought up to speed with the latest classification codes and views. But no, that's fantastic, Chris. I think that concludes the sort of second part of the webinar, looking at integrating the model and the specification. Hi, and back to me now for the third part of the webinar, just to look at some of the functionality in NBS Chorus. So we've looked at the content that was developed, we've looked at how it was cross-referenced in the drawings. Now, just a little bit of a look at some of the functionality that maybe not everyone is aware of that's on the webinar. So as mentioned earlier, there was different sorts of specification that were developed. So like pure descriptive performance specifications, but also prescriptive ones with manufactured products from NBS source. On the page that accompanies this webinar, you can see some of the manufacturer's content that's been included. So we try to make it broadly one manufacturer per package, and that was done as a draw. There was, I think it was 5 or 6 manufacturers that all wanted to be part of the flat roof, but we drew one out and they won. So after the webinar, we'll send the links round and you can see the manufacturers that have been featured. We didn't want to just take their products and just like run with them. We wanted to sort of involve the manufacturers in writing the specs as well. So one thing we did, if we jump back across the chorus, is invite all of the manufacturers in. Right, and it sounds a bit dangerous. It sounds like a Wild West free for all, but we use the permissions functionality in Chorus to make sure that was robust. So we have a little look down here. You've got a manufacturer, say Mark here from Structura. Their permissions are limited. So as I come in here and have a little look, you'll see that I've excluded them from a number of the specifications, which are sort of like backup specs, just to keep the interface nice and clear. And then the main architectural spec made them read only. So the only thing the external contributor can do is comment on the spec, and that stops words being changed. It like has like a firm sort of permissions control. And we had something called a scratch pad spec as well, which you could make a manufacturer a contributor to. So they could come in and work in the scratch pad area, and then you review it and then copy and paste that into the main architectural area. So I've never seen one of our projects with so many people invited into, but we really used the permissions model quite tightly. And as admin there, you can see I've got quite a lot of different like structural spec. We're going to do a cause spec. For somebody coming in as a reader, you can see, so here's my colleague Kate that's been invited to the spec. So she comes in and she can see that that's the architectural spec. And this is a scratch pad spec where you can do work in progress sort of work and then copy and paste it across. Now, if I jump back across to my login again, so logged in as Stephen here, we used quite extensively the spec notes. So you can see we've got 260 different notes that have been added. I use little icons to see when notes have been done and things as well. And you can search for the notes or the people that made the comment. So here you can see for the door set system, which I think was the manufacturer DoorTech, we've got one of the technical specialists at DoorTech that have been in working on the spec, adding comments, and you can jump straight in there and come to the system outline clause. And on the right-hand side, you can see there's a whole conversation here between one of the NBS technical authors, Paul from DoorTech, and you can see the sort of replies there from Craig, where things have been amended as well. So you've got the main specification, that's the sort of single source of truth, but then a capture of the conversation on the right hand side as well. So we designed Chorus to be collaborative, and hopefully that shows that off quite nicely. Another thing is when you're at that sort of top level, and I've got like systems, I could filter and just show the products. Chris showed quite nicely where you could just like have a coding system and just the like all of the external wall system items there with, so we had the sort of cross-referencing system from the start. But one nice feature is the spec summary schedule. So I jump across to the spec summary. This is what we used sort of early on, where you just have a summary of the items and it extracts the description from the clause as well. So you might be hitting the edge at the end of the sort of concept design stage about to go into detailed design. You can just have a little view of the, like what are the things in the spec and what's the design intent, or what's the location of the items, the design responsibility. Also things like there's an image there of the particular manufacturer item, if that's been pulled in from NBS source as well. And that's an area of the product we want to improve in 2023. So just like working on this on a sort of day-to-day basis, it would be really nice to have a sort of wide view of this and a few more columns as well, maybe different tags and things. So we do want to improve the reporting capabilities. So you've got a huge amount of information in the specification. how do you pinpoint it to the information that you want to see at any one time? Because there's a very well structured database behind the NBS specification model. Worth mentioning publication history as well. So we've seen the PDFs on the extranet, but how did we do the publications? But it was things like having that little coding system to sort of group similar things together, and then you'd pick what you wanted in that package and go and sort of publish it to PDF. Now, every time I published something major to PDF, what I wanted to do was keep a history of that. And there's no better way of keeping a history of what's been published than following the guidance in the 19650 information management standards. So I tried to do that. I got a bit of feedback on social media as well, which is really appreciated. But you can see here in terms of the naming convention used, like for the full specification, I think the bit on the right hand side will be stripped off if it goes in a common data environment. You'd have these in as attributes. But you can see the full spec going from the different review periods 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 19 days ago, and then going from review to authorized and shared to contractual. And in addition to publishing the full spec, also published the various packages as well there. So for example, we can see there the sort of sanitary ware package, contractual, authorized for stage 4, a little bit of human readable text on the end, and then we actually use the elements table for the sort of area of the building, interesting feedback. We talk about that all weekend on social media, I'm sure. But yeah, nice naming convention, generating a PDF by a particular person. And I think we're running out of time a bit today, but you can have the sort of revisions, what's revised between revision 1 and revision 2 marked up in the spec as well. Got a really nice print template, so that's going straight to a PDF. I've got a little hyperlink for anybody that gets the PDF and wants to know the story. Using those fields on the cover page, a number of systems in that package, all hyperlinked, and then the text that Craig showed earlier in the webinar. And maybe just the last thing to mention is you can actually see what's been linked to the model and what hasn't from the text of Chorus without opening up Revit or AutoCAD or Vectorworks. So if I, for example, show the sanitary ware items in the spec, it's a little bit subtle, but just the little cube on the left-hand side, I'm seeing there what's linked to the model and coordinated and annotated properly. So if I was the spec writer, I could sort of finish the week and maybe have a chat with some of the guys working on the design and say, look, are we not annotating the toilet roll holders or the pre-installed frames or what have you, and have that conversation and seeing what's linked up and what hasn't been linked up and what you're going to ignore. Maybe you don't have to link everything in the spec to something that's in the model, but that's that little icon on the left-hand side. So that's bringing us to the end of the webinar. Today, just to wrap up, I'm just going to show some pages from our website. If you want to know anything more about Chorus, first of all, just come to our website, platform, Chorus, any manufacturers watching, we've got source there as well. And there is the sort of main buttons on the homepage of our website. If you want to download the specifications now, that set of sort of 1920 PDFs, which link to the prelims and the drawings on the Dropbox or the Google Drive, you come to resources and then come across the sample specification here on the right-hand side. You can send that link through by URL as well. Please pop it in the chat if you just want to email it through as well. So anybody that wants to have PDF copies of those specifications, drop something in the comment now or wait for the email later today, tomorrow. We actually can give you those specifications in Chorus format as well. So if you're already a Chorus user and you think, I'd love to have a sample project, share with my colleagues, etc. If you invite one of our customer support team, or just give them an email, they can explain how you can invite them into your organization. We'll copy and paste them across, and then you can kick them off your license. But we can give you those in a Chorus format. Just drop us an email if you'd like to take advantage of that offer. The sample specs page just links across here to this page. which has gone live this week. Lakeside restaurant specs, you just fill in your details, click go, and download those files. We haven't done the cores versions yet, but we intend to do that by the end of November. And if you're watching this webinar, I'm sure there'll be questions on this. I maybe should have said at the start, and you wanted to see examples, structural engineering, or building services engineering, landscape, small works. We haven't got those for the Lakeside spec yet, but we do have examples of those specifications as well. It is our intention to continue with this project and to develop building service engineering examples as well as a sort of next step. There's also the link here about the story of how they're developed, which there's a little website here which basically talks about what we talked about in the webinar today. So that wraps up today's webinar. Please, if you want to know more about NBS Chorus, get in touch, write in robust specifications and prelims. Please pop a message in the chat if you'd like to know more. Visit the NBS.com, download the NBS sample specifications today, and thank you very much for staying with us for the webinar. Always really enjoy reading the feedback, so please spend a little bit of time at the end when the pop-up comes and let us know what you thought of the webinar. But thank you very much. Thanks to Matt, thanks to Chris. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.